Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cineposium podcast. My name is Martin Ibarra Ramos.
And I'm Alex Apicella.
Every week we invite another member or collaborator of Cineposium to present a remote film program on our show. If you follow our Instagram account at Cineposium and or our Twitter account at Cposium, you'll be able to keep up with our programming posts published every Thursday, along with calls for audience questions and additional content of various forms related to the films we discuss. I have a quick announcement to make before we move on. Our show is now accessible on some additional platforms. In addition to Anchor and Spotify, you can now follow our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and we've also set up our own YouTube channel, which contains all of our episodes as well. So if you prefer to use one of these new platforms to listen to our show, we're happy to now offer you that opportunity. We want to make our show as accessible as it can be and to reach as wide an audience as possible. So we're excited to have the show available on more widely used platforms.
Last week, Michael Mazakin presented for us a program of Ishiro Honda's Godzilla and Hideaki Anno's and Shindo Higuchi's Shin Godzilla. Mike's program was absolutely fantastic, and I hope that you guys get the opportunity to check out those films if you haven't already. Next week, we'll actually be doing something a bit new to our show. 3 members of Cineposium will collectively present a triple feature curation, so be on the lookout for that next Thursday. For today's episode, our program is Cineposium member Liwen Wang. Without further ado, we'd like to invite Liwen to present our program.
Hello everyone, I'm Liwen Wang, and this week I'm programming The Big Sick, which is a 2017 romantic comedy film. And this film is a semi-autobiographical story of the comedian Kumail Nanjiani and his wife, Emily V. Gordon. This story is basically about the Pakistani-American comedian Kumail falls in love with a graduate student, Emily, who he meets at one of his stand-up comedy shows. Their vast cultural difference, however, drove the two apart, but then when a big sick of Emily's happened, which caused her to be in a medically induced coma, Kumail is forced to face Emily's family, his own family, and also, last but not least, his heart. And unlike most of the romantic comedies we're more familiar with, which primarily sheds light on the courtship between the romantic leads, The Big Sick is not the case. Since most of the film, Emily is in a coma, and Kumail has to face all these on his own. This film introduces a refreshing storytelling within this genre, which this genre has been heavily relied on. The almost omnipresence of the romantic leads in the film. And another part I like to highlight in this film is its portrayal of interracial couple. It is not a new topic within American cinema, especially after the 1967 legitimacy of interracial marriages. But then, as Kumail said in one of his interviews, he said that, but it is rarely seen of a brown man with a white woman within whether the big screen or the small screen. And interesting, this also brings back something I read when doing my research. I did a research on millennial Hollywood romantic comedies, and when reading about the 2005 film Hitch, Will Smith had talked about the casting of Eva Mendes. He was saying that they were thinking about intraracial, but then they feel like a Black actress would not appeal that much to a global audience. But then if they want to cast a white actress, it perhaps would do well internationally, but not necessarily in the US, which I thought was interesting to read about. And as for the intraracial relationship representation, there's also within academia, there's also discourse about perhaps a white savior. And also Kumail has mentioned some people would feel like it perhaps would be an attack on whiteness. And like from the top of my head, in recent years, the 2010s teen romance film, many of them are interracial films, but then most of the male counterpart is a white figure, which also stirred some interesting discussion within my head. And but then another aspect of this interracial relationship is that some people would feel like this is a studio's reluctant of presenting more of intraracial couples. But I feel like in recent years, intraracial couple representation has been on the increase. Like this year, there's a romance film called The Photograph, and also Sorry to Bother You. They are all very present with their intraracial representation. And all in all, even though I feel like The Big Sick did not intend itself to be merely a interracial representation, but this can also inspire and bring conversation to this discussion. And most of all, I'd invite everyone to enjoy The Big Sick and think about, ponder on these questions, and just see how this film has used a lighthearted tone and comedic tone to tackle this question and present also some aspects of a different culture that we're not familiar with. Enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Liwen. We're so excited to watch the film. I caught it in its theatrical run, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite of that year, and so I'm excited to revisit it again.
Yeah, it's also one of my favorite 2010s romantic comedy.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you to everyone who tuned in to this episode of our show. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our show on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you access the show. You can find the link to our profile page on Anchor in our Instagram bio. And again, please follow us on Instagram at Cineposium and on Twitter at Cposium. If any of you have any questions related to Liwen's program, feel free to DM us on either platform, and we'll address them in our next show. Also, if you're interested in subscribing to our weekly e-newsletter, email us at cineposium.ucla@gmail.com. Thank you again, Liwen, for preparing this remote program for us, and thank you all again for listening. Until next time, take care, everyone.